So who'll give me $1 for this $20 bill? Okay, that's yours. Now stand up here with me, and your name is?
Julio Iglesias. I'm Mark Baker.
Was that opportunity available for everybody in the room? And what did Mark have to do to capitalize on the opportunity? He was closest to me, yes, but also what did he have to do? He had to get up and move. Yes, thank you, Mark. So did he take a risk in coming forward? He did. He had no idea whether I was going to embarrass him or what. So here's the deal. Opportunities are everywhere. There is no scarcity of opportunities. So put your hand on your heart and say, there's no scarcity of opportunity. And there isn't. As I work with people throughout the world, I can tell you no matter what's going on, there are people that are in every single industry that are soaring to success. So I help salespeople and financial advisors get their ask in gear. So let's talk about prospecting. And think about when you look at this picture of this brilliant bird, what are the characteristics of this bird in order for the bird to meet their goal? So yell out some of those characteristics. Determination. Tenacity. Flexibility. Perseverance. Ingenuity. Creativity. And is that bird having to stretch? And so think about your prospecting activity. And in this holiday season, there are a lot of salespeople that are taking a mental vacation because their prospects don't want to talk to salespeople. They don't want to talk about their finances at this time. And I can tell you there are people out there in your industry that have their pedal to the metal and they're prospecting. They have accelerated their prospecting because guess what? Your prospects are available. They're in their office. They're cleaning up for the year, and they are setting appointments. So when you think about what it's going to take for you to rejuvenate your prospecting and get serious about it, let's just remember this brilliant bird here. So many times when salespeople and financial advisors come to me, and they're not making enough phone calls. Now, I have people that call me that tell me that they're in the 7-figure income range. They're meeting their revenue goal, but they're not meeting their new business goal. Because here's what happens. And you all have a handout. And I want you to draw a bell curve on the back of your handout. So draw your bell curve. Everything in life is on a bell curve. Your career, your marriage, your relationships, your puppy dog, your house, the mountain, your boat, whatever, your golf clubs is on a bell curve, right? And here's what happens. Is that people have a strategy, a winning strategy that takes them to the top of the bell curve. So put a check mark at the top of the bell curve. So now they've reached the peak. How many of you don't have to raise your hand, have reached the peak of your career? And what happens when people reach the peak if they don't re-energize and rejuvenate? They hit a plateau. So now I want you to draw a line like this, a straight line across there. So people plateau. And many of the people that I coach are proud and plateaued. They're proud because they've made it so far. They're proud of their income, but they've plateaued. There are two things that happens when people plateau that it can be very detrimental to their livelihood, their career, and their very being. They're bored. And when people get bored, they disengage. And that's what I notice that's happening in the financial services industry. And here's where I tell that, like, I love the millennials, these young advisors, because they haven't peaked yet. They're really going up that bell curve. And they are soaring. But here's what I'm finding. There are some baby boomers that are proud and plateaued, and they're cranky. And the millennials are soaring to success. So I'm going to challenge you today, and just to ask yourself internally, have I plateaued? What am I going to do in order to re-energize for 2014 so that I'm not boring and disengaged? And guess what? New business is the lifeblood of business. It's the what? Lifeblood. The lifeblood of business. So with that said, oftentimes when people start to think about going out and prospecting, either strategic alliances, CPAs, lawyers, or whoever, and they're a little clumsy, they're awkward. And what I find is that they do not know their value. And so that's another thing that I work with. When people think they have a prospecting problem, sometimes it's a value problem. They don't own their value, because when you find somebody who owns their value, they're able to convey their value, and they are emotionally resilient and unstoppable. So you think about if you're putting off your prospecting, and you know that you need to do more prospecting, right? But you keep putting it off, it doesn't get better. And sales call reluctance is nothing to be embarrassed about, but living with it needlessly is. Because you can develop those skills, and they're emotional skills. I believe right now that 70% of the sale is engagement and uncovering a need. And you think about it, because so many people say, once I'm in front of somebody, I have a close rate of 65 to 70%. So it is the emotional component of prospecting that keeps people from prospecting. So with that said, you can develop those emotional skills. And I promise you, because I've lived it, and I work it, and I love it. So you cannot change your business until you change the way that you value you. And when you really know your value, you'll own it, and you'll be able to go out there and sell it, because that's really what you're selling. So we're all a work in progress. So I want you to put your hand on your heart and say, I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. Now I want you to look around the table and make eye contact with somebody and say, you're a work in progress. Now what I want you to say is, Connie is a work in progress. So I'm a work in progress also. Now I'm not here to pull any rabbits out of the hat. There are no tricks that I teach. I teach solidly proven behavioral scientific techniques for people to develop emotional resiliency around prospecting. So think about it. What you're really doing when you're prospecting is you are managing your visibility in your marketplace. So the two behavioral scientists that I work with out of Dallas, Texas, that wrote the bestseller, The Psychology of Sales Call Reluctance, their research has proven it's not the hardest working, it's not the best prepared, it's not the smartest person that is getting the business. It's the person who is most willing to prospect and self-promote. It's the person that is most willing to manage their visibility in the marketplace. So when you think about it, right now, give yourself a grade, A through a D minus. How well are you managing your visibility in your marketplace? What grade would you give yourself? So just make a mental note of that. So it's all about putting a face to a name, etc., and positioning yourself as the expert, the authority, the competent individual, correct? So start putting a face with a name and moving forward. Now, last year, we did a study of 4,700 salespeople, and we said, how are you getting your business? Because a lot of social media and opportunities are out there. 70.8% of the salespeople surveyed said through direct prospecting that is the way that they're getting their business. So don't kid yourself. It's all about that direct prospecting. So sometimes people are not prospecting, and it's because they have a little bit of call reluctance. However, there's a deeper performance issue, and we call it an imposter issue, because some people just simply do not want to prospect. They really don't care enough to push themselves out of their comfort zone. And we have an assessment that actually will measure if somebody is experiencing an imposter issue when it comes to their prospecting. So let's think about it. There are 3 ways to increase your sales. Who here wants to increase their sales? That's why you're here, yes? Okay, so there are 3 ways. Number 1, retain your existing clients. And I know that there are some advisors in here that your clients are getting a little older and they're starting to move on, transition, pass away, right? And think about it. Are you making contact with their children, etc.? So you can sell more to your existing clients, or guess what's the 3rd way to increase your sales? What is it? Right, prospecting. Go out and get brand new, fresh clients and customers. So a solid performance solid platform for performance. Number 1, it's all about visibility. And when you're visible and you're competent and you're proactive, that's when the magic happens. And then your credibility, and you must have a laser-sharp value proposition. If you don't have this, this is the number 1 thing that you need to have. And I know so many advisors do not have this value proposition that is as unique as their fingerprint. So that is something for you to think about, because when you're prospecting, you need to be able to answer the question for the prospect. Why should they care? Why should they believe you? And then what do you do? And most people start out with, what do I do? So think about it. Why should they care? Why should they believe you? And what do you do? Okay, so how do you know if you're call reluctant? Well, the first place is you look into your bank account. Do you like what's in there? Because that's where call reluctant shows up first. Then you look at your appointment calendar. Are you excited about those appointments that are on there? If there aren't enough appointments on there, that's where call reluctant shows up second. So in your bank account and in your appointment calendar. So it's all about conversations. How many conversations are you willing to have on a daily basis to meet your goal? And so being from in the Las Vegas here, here's what I recommend that you do during the holiday season. Now, I only got 5, but I think you need 10. These are these chips here. Is that on your desk, that you get a pile of 5 to 10 different visuals, and that you promise yourself, I'm not going to leave my office until I move all of these to the other side of my desk. So every person that you have a conversation with, now it could be an existing client asking them for a referral, you move that to the other side of your desk. And then you made another one and you move it over, because you can't manage what you don't measure, and whatever you measure improves, and that you really need to have in your head, this is the number of people that I choose to contact on a daily basis. It gets so exciting when you start developing that momentum. So be able to have something. I use semi-precious gemstones, and I mean, 10 a day is easy. And before you know it, it is just so exciting because you start creating that energy, and then you ride that magic carpet of momentum. There's nothing better in the world to have a real strong momentum. So let's look at a basic sales model. Number one, you identify your prospects. And I'm a believer that if they bore you, drain you, or frustrate you, I don't care how you want them, they're not worth it. Work with people that are fun. The more fun you have, the more fun they will have. The more fun you have, the better you'll feel. The better you feel, the richer you'll be. Number two, initiate contact. Number three, introduce yourself. Number four, have that all coveted eyeball, face-to-face meeting. Number five, influence them to buy from you. So think about it. When you look at this basic sales model, if you were to give yourself a grade, an A through a D minus, on all of these 5 components, where are you the strongest? Mahesh, where are you the strongest?
Initiating contact.
Oh, you're a good prospector. Awesome. That's why you're the president, huh? So think about it. Where are you the strongest? No? He was. So, but this is good visibility for you, isn't it? To be in a leadership position, right? So where are you the weakest? And I won't ask you there. But you're only as strong as your weakest link. And most salespeople, insurance, financial advisors, guess what their weakest link is? Initiating contact. Because there is an emotional, 80% of that exercise is emotional in origin. And the good news is I'm going to really work with you on that this afternoon. So the best indicator of sales success. What do you think the best indicator and predictor of sales success is? What do you think? Okay, so you know what? I'm going to give you one of these. So you're having a good day today. What'd you say again?
Outgoing phone calls.
Yes, the highest correlation between prospecting, this is it right here, between prospecting and sales success. That's the high correlation, the best predictor. Here's the definition for prospecting. The proactive steps. So, what is your favorite excuse for not prospecting? Yell them out. What's your favorite excuse? Coffee meaning what?
I gotta do something else.
Oh, he's got to go get coffee. What was yours?
Lazy.
Lazy.
Poor positioning.
What?
Poor positioning.
Poor positioning. What else?
Not a good time.
It's not a good time. Thank you. What else?
Don't want it.
I don't want to. Okay. So usually that's an imposter issue if somebody doesn't want to. They don't have enough fire in the belly. They've not worked on the why behind the what. What else? A favorite excuse?
Don't have time.
I don't have time. I have other things to do. Justifiably, right? And that's the kicker where we're kidding ourselves because we all have administrative stuff to do, right? But we do that during the non-pay time activities. So think about what is your favorite excuse. So successful salespeople will experience pain. You talk to anybody who's in MDRT or at any level of success, they do experience pain. But here's they're free to choose the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. We all know what that regret looks like, but the pain of discipline is disciplining activity and disciplining how you are thinking about prospecting. So let's cut to the chase. It's not prospecting that causes your anxiety. So put your hand on your heart and say, it's not prospecting that causes my anxiety. It's my thought about prospecting that causes my anxiety. If you can get that, you are 51% of overcoming your call reluctance. It's your thought about prospecting that is causing your anxiety. So we are in a wacky, wonderful world. You're busy. Everybody's busy. Our prospects are busy. It's our responsibility to tap in to our prospects' world in order for them to communicate with us. That's where the creativity, the brilliance, the strategy, the structure, the execution, and this is where a good practice manager, a good coach can really help you develop. And that comes back to that value proposition. If anybody does not have a good value proposition, give me your card and I'll email you a worksheet that will help you develop a value proposition. That's number one, first and foremost. So when you're making prospecting calls, 100% of communication is taking place. Only 27% are the words that are coming out of your mouth. 73% is your tone. That's why there are some people that they say, oh, I'm having so much success with this script, and they give it to somebody else and they bomb. Because it's your tone. What is your tone? How many of you have ever recorded your prospecting calls? By show of hands, anybody ever recorded them? What did you learn when you recorded your prospecting calls? Are you willing to talk to me or are you shy?
I'll talk to you. Okay. Well, what I found out is I'm not very exciting.
He's not very exciting when he makes his prospecting calls. Okay, so thank you very much. You know what? I think that's worth a $5 chip here. So with that said, thank you, Robert. Mr. Exciting. So that we have to be exciting in order to engage them. So when you're prospecting, it all needs to come together. The right person, right message at the right time. And you may be calling the right person with the right message, and it's just a timing issue. And that's where you circle back with them. So here's what sales call reluctance is. And Richard, when he introduced me, when you're ready to reach for the phone and you stop and you flip around and check stock prices one more time, or whoever won the game last night, or your email, that is call reluctance, that emotional hesitation to initiate contact with prospects. So there are only two ways to view prospecting: as an opportunity. Oh my goodness, is the opportunity endless? Yes. Or you can choose to view prospecting as an emotional threat. That's as simple as it gets. Where you get all boxed up in your own little box where you consider it a threat when you're reaching out and prospecting. So there are 4 steps to eliminate call reluctance. Number 1 is to become aware of it. Now, how do you know if you're call reluctant? What? Who said that? Okay, she gets a chip. So you check your wallet. So the first step is to become aware. You check your wallet, you check your appointment calendar. And then the second thing, you're welcome. The second thing is to assess your call reluctance. Now, you can get a free assessment on my website, or there's one that you can invest in, and I'll talk to you about that at the very end. Number 3 is admit, and believe it or not, this can be the most difficult one, to admit you're call reluctant. You have to have a little bit of humility. And I always tell salespeople, why not just admit to call reluctance and just be a little bit vulnerable and humble now, or you're going to be really humble when your company scoots you out the door because you were not active enough. So have that humility with a coach. Admit it. I admit I'm call reluctant. I admit it, and I'm going to be humble, and I'm going to do something about it, because there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Living with it needlessly is. And that's when you can really step into your true contribution. And number 4 is to apply proven techniques. To apply proven techniques to overcome call reluctance. So there are 12 types of call reluctance. There are how many types of call reluctance? I'm only going to review 3. If you want any information on the other ones, you can give me your card. I'll send you a link. The number 1 type of call reluctance is the yielder behavior. The Mr. Nice Guy, the Ms. People Pleaser, that they're really more account managers. They're really nice people, but they're not assertive in moving the sale forward. And oftentimes they'll dance up to the close and they'll stop. They have close reluctance. The yielder call reluctance is the person that wants to just go out and help people. That's customer service. And it's okay to want to help people, but to recognize that you're in sales. How many of you genuinely embrace the fact that you are a salesperson? You are, and I've worked with national companies, and I can tell you they're still telling their people, call them up and tell them that you're not trying to sell them anything. If you're doing that, you're blowing your credibility because it's not true. It's not true. You are trying to sell them something, and it's okay. It's okay to sell somebody something. Selling is just exchanging goods and services for money. That's it. Right now, I've been contracted to coach financial advisors that are moving from commission-based to fee-based and really getting their head around and messaging that. And there can be quite a little bit of resistance there. So yielder behavior. Number 2, how many of you are perfect? You're waiting for that perfect script. Anybody in here just looking for that perfect script? So you perfectionists in the room, do you know how a gemologist knows they're dealing with a fake stone? When it's perfect, yes. So the other type of call reluctance, and it's prominent in your industry, is role rejection, that you're not comfortable being a salesperson. The advisors that I know that see themselves as a salesperson first or a marketer first and then a insurance or financial advisor second are the ones that get it. And that's true for many professions. I worked with a group of cosmetic surgeons. The ones that knew they were marketers first and surgeons second have a full slate and a waiting line of patients. And the ones that are saying we're cosmetic surgeons first are working 3 days a week. So it's a marketer first and then what you do second. That's the reality. And if you're embarrassed that you're in sales, that's called role rejection. It's contagious. It can be contagious throughout companies and throughout offices. Telephobia. If it's just the telephone, that's the easiest one to overcome. You can overcome it in one morning in your office because I did. So 80% of your success is due to your emotional intelligence. And the reason that people do not prospect consistently because they don't know how to handle their feelings when they're prospecting. And emotional intelligence is learning how to handle your feelings. So with that said, and on your handout, and then I'm going to do an exercise here with you. So it's not prospecting that causes your anxiety. It's your thought about prospecting. So what I want you to do right now is, as you sit here, think about a dream come true client that you absolutely would love to land, and write down their name. Who would you, as a strategic alliance in whatever it is, who would it be? So commit it to paper. Now, when you think about prospecting that individual, If I was sitting in your office with you and I say, okay, go ahead, pick up the phone and punch in that number, what is the first thing that would come to mind? Your freedom is in you identifying that. What's the first thing that would come to mind when you think about picking up the phone and prospecting that individual?
Good listener.
You would think that you're a good listener?
No, that client is a good listener.
Oh, you would just think that. And so how does that help you pick up the phone and make the call?
Because whatever I have to say, they'd be willing to listen to, and would be, I could use my ideas for them.
Okay, so he's already starting out, that they're a good listener and they're going to be open to me. So if you can just really know that your freedom is in you writing down what is it that causes you to divert to other activity. Because once you can do that, you can work yourself out of the call reluctance. So it really comes down to whatever you are thinking triggers a feeling or an emotion which alters your action. So if you set your mind, you say, you know what? I'm going to make 10 prospecting calls a day. And that is truly my intent, to make those calls. And then you start, when you're ready to start, then you start, oh, I've got something else to do. Start writing it down, because that's what is going to free you from the call reluctance. So whatever you think alters your feeling, and if any way you feel anxiety, it will alter what you do. You'll divert. You'll go check stock prices. You'll go get a cup of coffee. You'll go do something else, and you will default on your prospecting. So anyway, in any given day, we have 30 to 60,000 thoughts a day. What are your thoughts when it comes to prospecting? How many of you have just resigned that it's just a fact and that you're just going to accept it and that's just the way it is, right? I'm not seeing too many hands on that one. So what is a belief? All a belief is a thought that you think over and over and over again. So when oftentimes people hear, they say, well, I just don't like to cold call. I don't believe it's cold calling. If you're really prepared, you're directly prospecting into people or companies where you know they need you. It's a direct prospecting. So what is your belief about picking up the phone and calling prospects? So this gentleman, I mean, anybody here that just kind of just enjoys prospecting, anybody who just finds it fun and you enjoy it? Okay, you do? Okay, I want to talk to you. So this is what it is, where it's just fun, because you can get here. Why is it so fun?
To me, I don't want to call cold calling. I call customer introduction. Without cold calling, nothing going to happen. Just like you go to war without the weapon. You have to have weapon.
Okay, so he just said cold calling, if you do not prospect, nothing happens. So whatever you believe, you will create situations to validate that belief. That's the most important thing that I can ever tell anybody. Whatever you believe, you will create situations to validate that belief. Do you believe you have value? Do you genuinely, beyond the intellectual level, know your value to your prospect? Because when you know your value, you will be emotionally resilient and unstoppable. And if somebody says no, they're still a nice person, and you just move on. So that's why when I was talking about disciplining the way you are choosing to think about prospecting. So what is attitude? All attitude is a sum total of your beliefs. So what is your belief in your ability to engage prospects? So we're in where everybody's going to be setting goals, right? If you haven't set your goals for 2014, most people set a goal and then just get moving. What I encourage you to do is you look at your goals and then you say to yourself, what skills do I already possess that's going to help me get that goal? And write them down. What skills do I already possess? And then say, what skills do I need to develop this year? And make a list. So then you can then move into action. But most people just leave out that skill part because we're all a work in progress. So it really comes down to, how do you get yourself from call reluctance to just picking up the phone and making the calls? Now, can I take it where people just, where they love it, they can't wait, it's so much fun? No, but I can help you neutralize the negative. So, fear of rejection is oftentimes what I hear. People say, oh, I don't like to be rejected. How many of you have ever you feel like that? I just don't like it when they tell me no. Well, what are you making it mean when they tell you no? So recently I was coaching a real estate agent out of Houston, and he said, I just really don't like it when they tell me no and take them off of my list. And I said, okay, let's talk about how can you take that perception that they said no, and that's a rejection. And what he came up with is, these people freed me up so I can go and work with somebody else. That is emotional intelligence. So fear of rejection is a negative interpretation. Leads to a negative emotion, leads to negative behavior, and then you don't get the results that you're looking for. So fear of rejection. So what blocks your success when it comes to prospecting? There are 4 things. Number 1, well, I'm going to put all at once, is a limited belief. So on the front page here, you wrote down the name of your dream come true client, right? So what was that one thing that when you think about prospecting that comes up? And what I encourage you to do is to write down 4 other perspectives. Because we have limited beliefs, and some of us are not prospecting because we have an assumption. And an assumption is, I've had an experience of this before, and an emotion comes along with it. Assumptions can majorly block you from success in prospecting. Perspectives, interpretations. Oh, people don't like to be called during the holidays. That is an interpretation, a perception, and a limited belief, and it's maybe true for some people, but it doesn't have to be true for everybody. And the inner critic. So those are the 4 things that block people from success. Limited belief about your value, assumptions, perceptions, and then that inner critic is usually pretty mean and destructive. That inner critic that sits on your shoulder and says, you're not good enough to prospect that high net worth individual. What if they ask you a question you don't know the answer to? What if you end up looking like an idiot? Why would you call them? You don't know enough, right? And we have that going on. And so the value here for you is to identify what is it that is causing you to stop? Because when you identify what is it is causing you to stop, you can challenge it and write a new one and make a new choice, because it really comes down to a choice. So here are some of the things that I've heard along the way. How many of you said, oh, they're not going to be interested? They'll think I'm trying to sell them something. They think this is stupid. I'll blow the contact. I hear that a lot. I feel inadequate. They'll be upset that I interrupted them. That's the yielder call reluctance. They'll be interrupted. You are interrupting them. But if your value is strong enough, you can engage with them. So it's your thoughts, your perceptions, your limited beliefs, and the assumptions that throw you down the self-doubt self-doubt spiral. That's what's throwing you down the self-doubt spiral. So the good news is you can stop throwing yourself down the self-doubt spiral. So all a mood is an unspoken thought. So if you're cranky and not feeling too good about yourself and your business, all it is an unspoken thought. So when you're ready to pick up the phone and you stop, immediately write down, what's causing me to stop? I'm going to be humble and I'm going to admit to myself what's causing me to stop, because then you can do something about it. Or what am I afraid of, right? So why do you want to learn to shift your perspective? Your business depends on it, yes? How many of you have goals to have 10 appointments a week? Raise your hand. 10 appointments a week, really? I mean, that's pretty much the financial services goal. If you didn't raise your hand, what is it? It's not really a goal, huh? So sometimes when we talk about things like this, it's just easy to distract ourselves and look at something cute for a minute. So you can neutralize the negative. Now, I'm going to share something with you that most people don't know. However, it's becoming more and more mainstream. And I am not promoting positive thinking alone. Positive thinking alone is worthless. You have to have a feeling that goes along with it. Am I on time? Okay, good. So you have to have a positive feeling that goes along with it. So in the center of your brain, you have a hypothalamus. Does anybody know what the hypothalamus does? What is it? It's the chemical center of your brain, and our bodies are literally chemical factories. And do you know that every thought you think, your hypothalamus is releasing a chemical? And so people who live in fear and anger, what chemical is being released? It's adrenaline. And that's, when people start having kidney problems, etc., oftentimes they have a lot of fear going on. And so when you think a thought that is uplifting, so think about somebody right now that you just absolutely adore. You just love them. I'm thinking about my new little nephew. His name's Rupert. Do you like that? And I adore him. So when you think about what is an uplifting thought, your hypothalamus is releasing a chemical that is going into every cell in your body that is a happy thought that is uplifting. Conversely, when we're in fear and negativity and doubt, guess what our hypothalamus is doing? It's pumping out chemicals that are that exact same emotion. And what happens if we don't take care of that, we get caught up in a loop, and our body actually starts thinking for us. Who do you know who is cranky all the time and negative? Their body is actually thinking for them, and they're caught up in that loop. So what's the good news? Is it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't have to be that way, that you can actually, and I'm going to give you a question that can truly help you start creating an entirely different feeling about prospecting. And as simple as it is, it engages your brain in a way that your brain hasn't been engaged before. And the question is, what would it be like to be at ease with prospecting? So what I want you to do is just get comfortable and just close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And I'm going to ask you this question, and I just want you to ponder the answer. What would it be like to be at ease with prospecting? What'd you say? because what happens is when you engage your brain, and if some of you, how many of you just couldn't even go there? I mean, your mind just was blank. You've heard that we only lose 10% of our brain, right? You're using a part of your brain that has not been used before. It's creating a newer pathway. So how many of you think about your goals? Whatever your goal is, you know, what would it be like, you financial advisors, I coach a financial advisor, what would it be like to have 60 million assets under management? What would it be like, whatever your goal is, and you start working on that 60 seconds a day, your hypothalamus is pumping out chemicals that are going to help you achieve that goal, because the brain does not get past or future. It only gets present. And you've got to believe it before you'll ever experience it. You've got to believe it before you'll ever experience it. And it just gets more exciting, because when you say to yourself, what would it be like to be at ease with prospecting? You're creating an entirely different feeling about prospecting in your body, and your body works 24/7. So how do you like that? Is that fun or what? So what's going on in your head? I can, I will, I choose. I can, I will, I choose. So what I want you to say to yourself is, it's all going to work out. Look at somebody next to you and say, it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. No matter what, it's all going to work out. And when you get caught up in things, and then another thing that I promote is that you walk into your office every single day and you say to yourself, today is the most exciting day of my life. Today is the most exciting day of my life. And start noticing what you start creating. When you start believing it, you are going to start having more fun. And the better you feel, the richer you'll be. So going back to the hypothalamus, the better you feel, the richer you'll be. Say to yourself, the better I feel, the richer I'll be. The better you feel, the brighter your future. So who's responsible for helping you feel better is you, right? So I've given you a lot of subtle tools today, and to be able to say, I'm willing to prospect more. Can you just say that? I'm willing to prospect more. Sometimes you have to start with that. So here's my definition for confidence. We all want more confidence. Transforming your fear into focus-related thinking, communication, and action. So with that said, I brought 4 copies of the world bestseller, The Psychology of Sales Call Reluctance. They're $20. So this book, anybody in management or training, the first 76 pages will be profound for you in helping people work through call reluctance, because most trainers say, pick up the phone. That is their solution for call reluctance, and it doesn't work, and that's why there's so many revolving doors. So there's an assessment that measures call reluctance. You and I spend about an hour on the phone. It has 21 different measurements, plus the book will identify your call reluctance and your strengths. And I've got a telepress class coming up. You can collect it out. And then also, any of you that don't know your value, you don't know your value, you're going to be the same place next year to be able to help you develop that. And I have a way in a coaching session that we can go through that. And then also anybody that has any training or speaking events. I'm really working hard on getting at NAIFA San Diego. So anybody here that thinks I have value today, whatever you can do for me, I would appreciate it. So with that said, this is my contact information. And I don't think we have time for questions, do we? No time. So my final question to you is, who has a 20 for this $1 bill? Thank you.